So, good evening and welcome to our monthly near death experience support group meeting. We welcome family members, seekers, and students of the NDE. My name is Tina Angeli. I am a near death experiencer. I'm also one of the facilitators of this group for 25 plus years. I also interview all speakers and ensure that they are suitable to speak for our group. Dr. Bethany Silver and I spend numerous hours making this group the successful group that it is. Anyone that wishes to become a working facilitator of the group and donate significant time to assist in technical and or administrative tasks for our group may contact us. This evening's speaker is Evan. To allow individuals enough time to ask the speaker a question, there'll be one question limit per attendee until everyone with questions has had an opportunity to be heard. The meeting will conclude. Is this meeting at 9? 9? I thought I saw something about 9 instead of 8:30.
No, it's going to finish. We should finish at 8:30.
Okay. Anyone wishing to continue to share with other attendees may remain. We ask that all attendees mute your audio, and when Evan concludes his sharing, we will be open to answer questions. Thank you. Evan, so grateful for the extra work you do as a group leader of all groups. Thank you for accepting our invitation to speak for our group this evening. We look forward to hearing your story. You may begin anytime. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. I appreciate it. Thank you, Bethany, for all the preparation you did. And I'm really grateful to be able to be here with you tonight. It's a real pleasure. And I love talking about spiritual experiences. I love talking about near-death experiences. And it's always exciting to be amongst people who are experiencers and who have an interest in the near-death experience. It's a wonderful thing. In life, we talk about lots of things. We talk about what we believe in, and what we believe in carries us through so many different things. Yet when we have a spiritual experience, when we've had a near-death experience, when we've had an epiphany that is life-changing and we touch the numinous in some way that influences us, it changes our life, it expands our life, and it puts our feet on a path that we walk while we're in this third dimension, and that path is always leading us on to new and more synchronicities and the opportunity to expand our minds and exercise our hearts so that our hearts expand and influence what we think and how we interact with each other. There's a lovely poem in a book by Houston Smith that I like to start out with. It talks about our stories, right? It says, tell me a story. In this century and moment of mania, tell me a story. Make it a story of great distances and starlight. The name of the story will be time, but you must not pronounce its name. Tell me a story of deep delight. And St. Paul speaks up and he says in another verse, look at this, you scornful souls, and lose yourselves in wonder. For in your day I do such deeds that if men were to tell you this story, you would not believe it. And that is so much like having a personal spiritual experience or having a near-death experience. It takes a step beyond belief. Frankly, my beliefs change every day. They change so often that I really don't use the word belief anymore. What I experience and what I have touched becomes my story and my experiences. And those experiences are so powerful and so much a part of me that we step beyond the idea of belief. What I saw and what I understood and what I felt when I had my near-death experience is immutable. It is unchangeable. It is something that I cannot deny, and it steps beyond belief. In Michael Pollan's book, How to Change Your Mind, he quotes a story by Bill Richards, and I love this story. Bill Richards had two spiritual experiences, and he says that he was embarrassed to tell his first experience. People wanted to know about his story, and whenever he told it, he felt that what he was saying was so outlandish that he was embarrassed to talk about it. And it wasn't until he had his second STE, spiritual transforming experience, that he realized that he'd forgotten 80% of his first story, and it was even more miraculous and overwhelming than the story that he had been telling. He says, and these are his words, "There are words we need that don't yet exist. We've got 5 crayons when we need 50,000 different shades." I love our discussion as we're starting our meeting today, and I believe it was Eric and Kathy were talking about their experiences, and all of us agreed, I believe, that it is much bigger than we first understood, and that as we have gone through time, it gets even larger, and we understand things much better. So it's lovely to be here tonight and to talk about the ineffable. My story starts on a cold winter night, and I was driving over a mountain in Utah, and I was leaving my place of business and going to where I was staying, and the road was a 2-lane highway. It was cold, and it was a little bit icy, and the road had been salted, and so some of it was wet, but nonetheless it was poor driving conditions. And I was speeding along. It was nighttime, and I came over a hill, and my headlights revealed to me a very large Western mule deer standing in the middle of the highway. And my first thought was that if I hit this deer, it's going to come right over the hood of my car and through the windshield, and I'm going to be dead. So I quickly dipped the wheels of my car to the left to avoid the deer, and when I turned my wheel back again, the car did not respond. It simply kept speeding and headed into the other lane. As I looked forward at the oncoming traffic, I realized that I was headed for a semi-truck and that it would be a head-on collision. The lights were dimmed very quickly, and I woke up. I was laying on the floor of the car. The car had been ripped in half. Literally, the truck went right through the car and cut it in half, right behind the front driver's side front wheel, all the way to the rear of the car. The left side was gone. and I could feel the cold wind coming in. And I could see that the rest of the car was collapsed around me. It was very frightening and disorienting. I went through an accounting, and I tried to move my body. I couldn't move anything on the left side of my body. I could move my right arm. I had no feeling from the middle of my back to my toes. I couldn't feel a thing. And I thought to myself very quickly that I would be a paraplegic. I had such an interesting thought after that. I did not consider what I had lost, but I continued the accounting to determine what I had left. I was in the car for quite some time. This road and where I was at turned out to be about 35 minutes down to the nearest town and hospital. I remember a woman coming to the car and bending down and talking to me for a short time to tell me that someone had gone to a little tiny town down the road and made a phone call and called for the police and the first responders. Well, that's the last thing I really remember about the outside world. It was quite cold outside, and the pain began to come in waves, and it was incredibly uncomfortable. And I couldn't move. And I remember that it felt as if my extremities were shutting down and everything was being pulled into the center of me and my heart. I knew I was dying. And I'm thinking right now about a conversation I had a short time ago. About how many NDEs are about what happens after you leave the body. And I remember saying to this individual that it was very important to me and a big part of my overall experience that I was alone in that vehicle that I had been driving, and I was able to go through the dying process. And the dying process became a real life lesson to me. As I was shivering and as I was starting to feel the pain, I had an opportunity to have a life review. And it was very beautiful. And I began to take my mind off of where I was and how I was feeling. And I realized what an incredible life I had had. I was able to see myself from a very young age. I was able to see how I had always felt there was something, and that I had always felt a closeness to the voice within myself. And that I was able to talk to whatever that might be, whether it be my guides, whether it be God, the numinous, the universe, the mystery, however you want to describe it. But I felt a closeness, that there was always something else about me or with me that I could talk to. And I really loved that. This individual asked me, who I was talking to, asked me if I would write that down. Let me read you what I wrote to him. The dying aspect of my MDE has long perplexed me. And I now feel that this scene was directly tied to the thought process as I slowly lost consciousness in my ruined automobile. I had been gradually slipping away from my physical consciousness. My mind played out my life, and I became very calm. The pain and the cold of my surroundings and the physical condition diminished. It was as if a warm blanket was being drawn over me, and I felt a peace beyond anything I have ever known. I saw I had been given a blessed life, loving, sustaining parents, experiences that tested but did not overwhelm or defeat my mind, body, or soul. I had 4 amazing children and a loving wife. My mind and heart expressed ardently that if my life was over, if this twinkling of physical existence was complete and there was nothing after death but blackness, I was contented and grateful. In that moment, I willingly slipped into the darkness as if moving into a kind, embracing slumber. I'll never forget that. There was no guarantee that there was anything after. I did not live my life with any great expectation that there was anything more. And I accepted my life as I saw it that night. And I was grateful. And I closed my eyes and I slipped away. And I appreciate that opportunity to have gone through the dying experience and being able to close my eyes and slip into the 4th dimension without any fear. I'm very grateful for that. I'm also grateful that I immediately awoke in the 4th dimension. And I was laying on the surface of whatever that is, and as I looked up, I was laying on my face, and as I pushed myself up, I could see a light in the distance, and this light was intense and beautiful and warm. I immediately knew that I was someplace else because I felt warm. I felt comfortable. The pain was gone. The freezing night was no longer affecting me. I was no longer shivering. I was absolutely at peace. I was absolutely calm, and there was no pain. As I slowly rose up, I could see the light across the ground, and I could see that there were what looked like rocks and dirt, and the shadow from the light shot out in front of me. As I stood up, I looked towards the light, and I saw ethereal beings. I don't want to say they were human. They did not look exactly like we do. They were spirit form. They were ethereal. Yet I knew they were individual, and I knew that I was exactly like they were. My feeling at that moment was that I was home. I did not recognize these people. They were not family. But nonetheless, I felt a complete brotherhood to them. And as I stood and looked at this sight, I saw in my mind that they were communicating with me, and they beckoned me towards them. As I floated in their direction and reached them, they circled me and they embraced me. And I felt an incredible peace. I felt absolute acceptance. I felt incredible love. I felt that I was part of them and they are part of me, and that I had known them before. I felt a complete estrangement from the physical world, from the third dimension. Everything that I had worried about, everything that I had feared, every shortcoming I felt I had, all of the stress of living in the density of the third dimension melted away. And I had a complete feeling that no matter what would happen, no matter how I would proceed, everything would be okay. Right. That was an amazing feeling. An amazing feeling. These loving beings talked to me and comforted me and embraced me and held me close. I was filled with light. I was comforted. And I was blessed by their presence. What a difference the experience was from any religious training that I had had, any ideas that I had been told by other men and by humanity of what this would be like. Was completely different. There was no judgment. There was only complete acceptance. There was a welcome, an embracing warmth that encompassed me. And I was incredibly grateful to be there. As time went on, I was told that I was welcome to stay, or if I chose, I could return back to the earth, but it was up to me to make that decision. As I contemplated that, my little children came into my mind. And I thought that it would be wonderful if I had the opportunity to see how their lives turned out. When I thought that thought, I was immediately shot back into the density of the third dimension, back into my body. The pain was incredible. I was back in the cold and I was shivering. And I had such a hard time getting back into my body. I wondered how I could fit into that physical wreck of a body. Right. As I opened my eyes, I was screaming and in pain. And the first responders were there. They were using the jaws of life to tear off the roof of the car and tried to lift me out. And it was very difficult and it was exceedingly painful. They finally got me out and I was placed in the ambulance and I was raced down the mountain to the small regional hospital that was there. And I was back in the third dimension. When I finally got to the hospital, I was brought into the emergency room, and I was surrounded by doctors, and I had never seen so many doctors. I learned later that this hospital is located right next to Highway 15 and Highway 89, and that this regional hospital was inundated with automobile crashes. And so they thought it would be a great idea to construct a trauma center at this hospital, and that they should go out of state to bring in the best trauma doctors that they could find, and that my crash that evening was at the same time as their initial meeting, when all of the doctors were at the hospital having their very first conference with each other and meeting each other. So they had to go to work, and they were an incredible group. I had never been I'd never been in this kind of a situation before, and they worked very hard on me. It was incredibly painful, and I was told that my thoracic cage was crushed on the left side, and that I had 300 breaks in my rib cage, that my lung was collapsed, and one of the ribs had gone through my lung, and they were trying to get the tube into my left side to reinflate the lung. Other doctors looked at my broken bones in other places, and needles were inserted, and I was hard pressed to keep up with all of the things that was going on. When they had finally stopped and had stabilized me and were going to move me into the operating room, I whispered to one of the doctors who was working on my side and asked him if there was someone there that could pray for me. And he looked at me and he said, "I'll pray for you." This man that I had never met before, and a doctor, raised his hands and said that he was going to pray for this man, for me, and the room that had been a madhouse, a cacophony of noises. And Kathy, you can appreciate this being a nurse, filled with so much activity, came to a complete standstill, and it became incredibly quiet. And this dear man prayed for me. I won't ever be in his debt, and I am very grateful for what he did for me. When he said amen, the place became that same madhouse it had been before, and the noises arose, and I was wheeled in to the emergency room. And that night, they did all that they could to save my physical body and to make it possible for me to continue my life on this planet. I'm very grateful for them. It took a long, long time and many years to heal. I had 300 breaks in my ribs. My shoulder was broken. I had ruptured spleen, which was shredded, and they had to remove everything. And my left knee hit the dashboard so hard it drove my femur through the hip and tore off the top of the femur. The femoral head was destroyed, and so when I woke up, I was completely immobilized from the waist down, and remained that way for over 6 weeks. before they could go in and try to determine if they could save the hip or not. A long time of recovery and many thoughts and many wondering nights if I had made the right choice to come back or not. And I'm very, very grateful that I did come back. And I was able to live with my 4 children and have 1 additional child, which have all grown now and have families of their own, and we have had a wonderful life. So I'm very, very grateful to the mystery for all the blessings that I have had. Returning and beginning to understand what had happened to me took a long time. This happened over 35 years ago, and in those days, people were not talking about near-death experiences or spiritual transforming experiences, or were even willing to talk about this kind of metaphysical baloney, if you will. Even churches at the time were very concerned about anything that was talking about an afterlife and spiritual experiences. My religion, a Christian religion, told me that I had to be very careful about what I'm talking about and that I should keep all of this to myself. And certainly, if I brought this up with business individuals, people I worked with, I found very few people who had a listening ear. So I kept a lot to myself. The interesting thing is, it doesn't matter what I thought. It didn't matter what I talked about or what I didn't talk about. My soul had been affected, and I knew I had changed, and my life took off in a very different direction than it ever was before. And I was doing things and thinking things and changing things in my life that everyone around me thought was absolutely insane. I became interested in Buddhism. I left my Christianity. I became a Buddhist. I happened to find Naropa University here in Boulder, Colorado, which is a Buddhist university, and they have a Buddhist retreat in the mountains with the stupa. And I took all the meditation classes, and I studied Buddhism for many years. That led me to Hinduism, and I studied that, and that led me to the world's religions, and I dived deeply into all of those, and I truly enjoyed and learned so much from chasing all these ideas and trying to find answers. I continued to be a businessman, and I built numerous businesses, and I had successes, and those successes led and allowed me to have time to do other things. And so I studied hypnotherapy, and I studied NLP, I studied Reiki. I followed my heart into many, many different areas and arenas. I realized that I was clairvoyant, and I had dreams that became realities, and that I had the ability to channel and to become a medium. I found through Reiki that I could heal with energy, and I became involved with a wonderful group in Boulder that called themselves Caritas, and they were a spiritist group from Brazil, and I learned about their type of Reiki healing, and I learned how to use energy to help others, and it has been an incredible journey, a truly incredible journey. It was in one of these classes where I was shown a movie about near-death experiences. And I remember sitting in that class, and the class ended and all the students left, and I remained sitting there in a darkened room, and the professor came by and said, "Evan, why are you still here? Everybody else is gone." I said, "Well, I finally have a name for what happened to me. It's called a near-death experience." And I understand a little bit better now of why I have had all these crazy things going on in my life, and why I have been so motivated to find my spiritual path. My family at first thought that I was, as I recovered from my illnesses and damages, and became able to function again, and I did all these crazy things, they had a very hard time. And I have to salute my wife and my family for giving me the space that I needed to follow my heart and follow my path. I allowed my wife to continue in her beliefs and gave her that space, and she was kind enough to do the same for me. So I was able to maneuver and find my way through and keep my family all together, and have that experience of being able to love my children and love my grandchildren and love my wife. Our 53rd wedding anniversary was on June 3rd, and I'm very grateful for my wife and my children for allowing me the space and being kind to me and accepting me as I went through all of this craziness. How does that change us? How does that change us? I think I've explained a lot of the things that I've done. The last thing that I did is I went back to school, and I added to my education. I became a transpersonal psychologist. And for the last 8 years, I've added all I learned to my healing practice that I have here in Broomfield. And I'm very grateful to have had that experience as well. So I say thank you to God, and I say thank you to the universe for allowing me to find my way through and find my spiritual path and be able to walk it. One of the main things that I learned and that I felt while I was on the other side was that I was connected to a much greater universe, a much greater creation than I had ever deemed possible. I learned about and felt one-on-one that there is a oneness that we live in. We're not, as we so often feel on this planet, we're not separated from the numinous. The mystery is always with us. We're a part of the mystery. And every soul that lives on this planet, human or not, is all a part of that same creation. I feel the oneness of all things every day of my life. And that drives me to serve. I found that to be so interesting. Not that I was not helpful or didn't try to be a kind person before. but I was driven to serve upon my return. And I found many different ways to do that, from little things to starting a healing group, to working with Carrie Toss, that spiritual group that I was with in Boulder, and becoming a board member on Carrie Toss, and doing healing practices every week, using Reiki and Spiritist energy healing. The healing group that I started was called the Healing Connection, and we had a wonderful group of people for over 5 years that really focused on healing, in passing energy on to those that had pain and suffering and a disease, or anything that any medical problem that was causing them problems or pain. We had amazing experiences. People who had stage 4 cancer and who were healed, and I had the experience personally of doctors running in all directions, trying to re-diagnose, rethink, and look at x-rays and CT scans and lab tests, because a person who was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer was now cancer-free. I've had that experience. And I can tell you that that in itself is a life-changing experience. And I'm so grateful to have had that opportunity and that experience. I walked the Camino de Santiago across Spain, and it turned into a wonderful spiritual experience. I have exercised my spiritual gifts, and every day I work to become a better man. I often believe that even though they gave me the choice to stay or come back, that coming back was not a gift for my family and not a gift for those people that I have helped or those people I have served, but for my own betterment, my own increase in understanding of God, the creator of all things, of the great mystery. Every day I see the universe as bigger than it was before. And I am so grateful to have that understanding, to have that feeling in my heart that I am walking my path, and that as I walk it, I will continue to grow. I will continue to gain greater understanding. And I have to smile when I say that, because every time I feel I have a better understanding, I realize how much bigger everything is and how much more there is to learn and there is to understand.
That was wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you.
I was really touched by that. So thank you very much for accepting our invitation.
Oh, my pleasure.
Okay, so now we're open for questions. Any questions?
No questions?
Okay, Bethany?
You know, I always have questions. Thank you so much, Evan. That was very moving. And what an incredible transition you made from before your accident to after your NDE, and the learning that you've pursued It's awesome. And the discovery that your that it was an NDE that you had just must have been, and you described it as so profound. And certainly I hear you on that. I'm curious, having not had a word for your NDE for quite some time until after, till you were in that class and realized what it was. I wonder what helped you, because you seem like very well integrated and very grounded. So I wonder if there are things that helped you integrate your near-death experience. If you could share some of the things that helped you.
I really think that I've always been a lifelong learner, and I really think as I dived into the various religions that I studied, it was fascinating to me to see that as you look at the spiritual side, the heart side of every religion, you find the same words, you find the same understanding, you find the same teaching, that God is love, that the universe is expanding and greater than what we have ever comprehended around us. That let me use Aldous Huxley. I know that a lot of you know who Huxley was. He passed away many years ago, but I loved. He was an incredibly brilliant individual and a philosopher, and his ideas and his writings always were almost metaphysical, and they certainly bordered on being spiritual. And I loved it when he summed up all of his learnings and all of his writings and his entire life's work. And he said, after everything is over, after everything is said, the only thing I can say is that we all should be a little kinder to each other. That is found at the heart of every major religion. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's Buddhism or Hinduism. It is an understanding that the greatest power in the universe is love. And we need to be kinder to ourselves and to each other. And as we do that, as we walk that path, everything's added to it. So understanding the thinking, and more than the thinking of those religions, the heart of all of the religions, taking the spirit out of the dogma and feeling the heart of every great prophet, every great writer, every great leader over the centuries. You find that at the center of it all is love. So I think that helped me to ground and understand.
And I imagine your way was reinforced with that as well. You know, things are sometimes easier. The day is more blue. The sky is more blue. There are more synchronicities. Everything in the universe points you in that direction.
Yes, it does, doesn't it? It does. It's like that quote I used in the very beginning about Bill Richards, and we're given 5 crayons in this world, and we need 50,000 shades, right? Just to describe the creation, just to describe what we saw when we crossed over into the other side, into the 4th dimension. You need 50,000 crayons. You need words that have never been developed. You are trying to you're trying to describe the indescribable, and describe the feeling and embrace of the mystery, which is an embrace of love and acceptance. It is not like anything I was ever taught. I said this before. I felt no judgment, only complete acceptance.
Thank you. Glenn, you're next. Glenn? What happened? He left? Okay, so, and we have, okay, Glenn, you were next on the list.
Hit the wrong button, the big red button. No, sorry. A great presentation. Thank you so much. I really wanted to touch real quickly, or as much time as you want to spend on it, of course. But you mentioned you went into Buddhism and then Hinduism and moved on. You just addressed some of the issues and the central issues of those things. But were there any specific practices that you did, say, particularly in Buddhist meditation or yogic practices that, kind of helped you get more in touch with that feeling, to get back into that place or to process your experience that you had when you were on the other side, so to speak? Thank you.
Certainly, meditation was very powerful, and I went through the 3 levels of teaching at Naropa, and I learned all of their practices and their mudras, and then Hinduism can even get more in depth, as I'm sure you're aware of, and then as part of my training as a transpersonal psychologist, I learned other forms of meditation and became certified to teach meditation. So I've learned them all, and I have to laugh at myself, and because it wasn't until I read Thich Nhat Hanh's book, Peace is Every Step, that I realized what meditation could truly be. I don't know if any of you have read Thich Nhat Hanh or know who he is, but I'm sure some of you do. But he's one of my favorite people. He passed away this year, as a matter of fact. I've learned so much from him, and I talked about tonight about understanding the oneness and that and being a part of that oneness, and I talked a little bit about meditation now, and in his book, he simplifies everything, and he takes the structure and the pain away from meditation and puts it back into the human heart where it should be, and you walk away after understanding his perspective and knowing that you can meditate no matter where you are, no matter what the conditions are, or no matter what position you're sitting in or standing in or whatever. You can go deeply into meditation, and it isn't how you do that practice. It is bringing the meditation into your heart and opening and listening for the mystery to whisper the truth and the grace. I love that thought and that idea. And Joel Goldsmith said many years ago, you need to sit in the presence of God. Stop thinking of God as a power or something that can give you something or do something for you or do something for your family or your son or daughter or your friend, but sit in the presence of God and allow that presence to ordain you so that you heal. You are the presence, and you can heal when you sit in the presence of God. You don't need to touch anyone. You don't need you don't need to lay your hands on their head. You don't need to do any of that. You need to sit in the presence of the creator of all things. The creator is the presence. The creation is the presence. And understanding that and allowing yourself to sit and bathe your heart in the presence of God. That is, you'd never talk about duality again.
Hmm.
Yeah,
So well said. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely.
you're welcome.
Beautiful.
All right, Kathy, we're next, and then it's Jack. Kathy?
Sure. You became a transpersonal psychologist. There's a lot of psychologists you could be. Why did you choose that one? And the reason I'm asking is because as I was going along and knew I needed help integrating the weird experiences I was having, I later learned that I needed to find a transpersonal psychologist. So I kind of want to know why you chose that. I think I know, but I want to hear it from you. And I'm sure you come across people who might have had NDEs or transformative experiences. I would think that's why they're seeking you out. And did you have any psychic gifts that you developed? You just say something about mediumship, which is why I think people would seek you out, because that's what they're having, is these weird psychic phenomenon. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. Absolutely not. People are often confused by that, especially coming back and not understanding what happened to them, or understanding the changes that are taking place and the motivations that are taking place. It is it's a frightening thing to cross over. It's a frightening thing for many people who have strong religious beliefs, and then they cross over and everything is different than they've been told it's going to be. And often people will have a negative experience as well, right? So there are myriad of reasons why people would seek me out. Becoming a transpersonal psychologist, again, that's something that I had to learn about. I was ignorant to what a transpersonal psychologist really does. Frankly, I was ignorant to what a psychiatrist does, or what a clinical psychologist does. What practices and modalities do they use? I had to go through all that process of learning and understanding. One of my closest friends was a clinical psychologist, and this is 15 years ago, and they said, if you go back and go back to school, look at transpersonal psychology and not clinical psychology. And I'm sure that person, knew me very well and knew my spiritual experiences. And she herself, as a clinical psychologist, had worked very hard to forget the clinical side of things, because she found out, having her own spiritual experiences and metaphysical understanding, that the soul is an incredibly important aspect, and that there is life beyond death, and we're more than just a soma, a physical body. We are a soul, and we are eternal. So as her beliefs changed, she was the first one to open the door to transpersonal psychology to me. Transpersonal psychology is all about spirit, and it's all about transpersonal experiences, spiritual experiences. And the first aspect is learning about the human soul and the human heart, and dealing with those issues on a spiritual level, a metaphysical level. So that really fits my experience and my feelings and my own heart. That's why I chose transpersonal.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well,
I just
thank
wish you knew you guys were around when I was trying to figure out that I wasn't crazy.
That's right. Okay, Jack.
Okay, thank you. I, can you hear me, everybody? I mean,
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
I've had some computer issues in my getting a new computer, and I'm still trying to catch up. I have to say, your description of your profound journey is one of the best I have ever heard, and I've heard many over the past 40 some years. So thank you very much. That was beautiful, and it reaffirmed a number of my beliefs and thoughts. I wanted to ask for a friend if you still have an active healing group.
I don't have that group any longer. Several moved away, and others took it. One of our best mediums took another job in another state, and we disbanded. It's something that I would really like to start up again. It was a beautiful experience.
Well, would you be kind enough to let me know when you reestablish?
I would, and I would be happy to pray for you as well. I will be at the conference again. I have been at the conference in the healing room. I spent all my hours at the conference in the healing room. And if you would attend our IANDS conference in August, September, I'd be happy to work with you. Or you can call me on the phone, email me, text me, and connect, and we can talk about what's going on. And I would be happy to channel. I channel. I pray for you and channel what comes through. Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Jack.
It's very much appreciated.
Very kind words that you said, and I'm grateful. Thank you, sir.
Well, and I mean, it was difficult to find the words, but you took us on a journey, and I was there with you all the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack.
Very good. Thank you. Anyone else? Any other questions? Dana, you're still there because I saw your name before, but it's not there anymore. Dana O'Neill? You must have left. Okay. Anyone else?
It's amazing how the natural flow of speaking spiritually is so poetic. It's beautiful, isn't it?
It is. It is. Truly is. Yeah.
And you can tell when you're in that flow and it's flowing through you. And you can tell it because you feel it. You can tell it because of the effect it has on other people. And it's just a real wonderful way to connect.
It's beautiful. Beautiful. Bethany, if there's no more questions, did I answer everything for you, Jim? Yeah. Can I read just a poem?
Please.
To end. This is one of my favorite books in life. It's by Thich Nhat Hanh, who was a Buddhist, Mahayana Buddhist monk, and he was probably one of the most practical and holy men I have ever known. And he talks about the oneness, and he talks about who we are. And he starts by telling a story, which was a real experience that he had. He was very instrumental in helping the boat people. I don't know how many of you remember the migration that took place after the Vietnam War. It lasted all through the 70s and into the 80s. When people left Cambodia, they left Vietnam and they tried to find safety. Many of them finally ended up in Canada and the United States and in other countries, but millions perished on small little boats on the China Sea trying to find safety from the political unrest that was going on in their countries. And because there were so many people out on the ocean, unarmed, unable to protect themselves, there were pirates that preyed upon the boat people. And Thich Nhat Hanh was told the story of a young 12-year-old girl who was on a small boat with a group of people. They were short on water, short on food. They tell the story that every day they had to wake up and throw the dead overboard. There was no ceremony because there was nothing they could do for these people. And this boat was boarded by these Asian pirates. And the pirates abused the people, stole everything that they had, took all their water, took all their food. And this little 12-year-old girl was raped by one of these pirates. And she was unable to live with what happened to her. And the next morning, she threw herself into the ocean and drowned herself. I ask for your forgiveness if I cried, because I have not made it through this without crying. And Thich Nhat Hanh titles his poem, "Please Call Me by My True Names." He titled the poem that because, as you'll see with his words, that no matter who you are, no matter if you're the pirate or the little girl or one of the boat people or anything else, we're all a part of this creation and we're all a part of the oneness. He goes in his poem and he says, bear with me. Do not say that I'll depart tomorrow, because even today I will still arrive. Look deeply. I arrive in every second to be a bud on a spring branch, to be a tiny bird with wings still fragile, learning to sing in my new nest, to be a caterpillar in the heart of a flower, to be a jewel hiding itself in a stone. I still arrive in order to laugh and to cry, in order to fear and to hope. The rhythm of my heart is the birth and death of all that are alive. I am the mayfly metamorphosing on the surface of the river, and I am the bird which, when spring comes, arrives in time to eat the mayfly. I am the frog swimming happily in the clear pond, and I am also the grass snake who, approaching in silence, feeds itself on the frog. I am the child in Uganda, all skin and bones, my legs as thin as bamboo sticks. And I am the arms merchant selling deadly weapons to Uganda. I am the 12-year-old girl, refugee on a small boat who throws herself in the ocean after being raped by a sea pirate. And I am the pirate, my heart not yet capable of seeing and loving. I am a member of the Politburo with plenty of power in my hands, and I am the man who has to pay his debt of blood to my people. dying slowly in a forced labor camp. My joy is like spring, so warm it makes flowers bloom in all walks of life. My pain is like a river of tears, so full it fills the four oceans. Please call me by my true name so I can hear all my cries and laughs at once, so I can see my joy and pain are one. Please call me by my true names so I can wake up, and so the door of my heart can be left open, the door of compassion. I love that poem.
Yes.
We are all one. We're part of the oneness. God is in us all. So let's all be kind to each other, and let's all follow our hearts and forget our ego, and leave it at the door when we go out into the world, and let our light shine and warm the hearts of everyone we touch. Thank you all. I appreciate it. God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you. Great job. Great job.
Thank you so much, Evan.
All right.
Thank you.